talk. This that block talk. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. Ain't made out of cop car. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. Ain't made out of cop car. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. Ain't made out of cop car. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. Ain't made out of cop car. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. Ain't made out of cop car. This that block talk. Block face down out line, nigga. Chop talk. Ain't made out of cop car.
Really fuck do they want as a man to get slapped, to get spit? I think spit on a different level from being
No, I
slapped.
know, but I'm saying to me, in my mind,
The spit is just there. Is
Hey everybody, welcome back to Block Talk Season 2, and we're kicking it off hot, man. Last week we had Peter from Ireland come on, and this week we have a very special guest who I've been excited to speak to for weeks. And my introduction couldn't do her justice because I can't continue to heap enough praise. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself,
Thank
please?
you, Boogie. I appreciate it. That's a very, very sweet intro. So, my name's Kaitlin. I am a sex and relationship coach. I'm a I'm a sex coach for Pornhub. I'm sorry, I'm a sex educator for Pornhub, and I'm also the co-producer of a show called Watch Girls Watch Porn, which is basically it's a talk show on Pornhub. So think of Howard Stern meets The View, where I invite guests on and we interact with over-the-top pornography.
And these are other porn stars that you have on that you interview?
Sometimes they are porn creators, but sometimes they are strippers, they're sex workers of various types, or comedians. Those are the range of people we've had on.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen a few episodes on Pornhub. I was only there for research, you know,
Sure,
purely
sure,
research
sure.
purposes.
No, I'm glad you did your homework.
All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Oh yeah, I always like to know a little bit. That's why I was so excited to have you on. You know, we've had another sexpert on, as I love
Yeah,
to call him, my co-host for
cool.
season 2. A little teaser for you guys, Gaio.
Love guy.
So let me go ahead and start off hot here. So, what inspired you to become a sex coach, and what exactly does your work
Yeah.
involve?
So the going back all the way to the beginning, right? So basically, I was raised in a household where we weren't encouraged to talk about emotions or really just like talk about tough things happening in life. And when I got older and I realized that that didn't serve me well, I actually ended up going to rehab for an eating disorder. And all of that was around not being able to express my emotions. So I was taking it out in a different way. And then so once I got help for myself, I really I was bit by the bug of talking about things. That became a really important thing for me. Um, and then when I actually went and got my master's in counseling, I took it a step further of, thinking about, okay, what is the thing that we really are not supposed to talk about? And that's sex, right? We're told that that is the ultimate, like, okay, don't talk about feelings, but definitely don't talk about your feelings around sex or any type of sexual issues that you have. So that got me really interested and really curious about the subject matter. Second thing is that there is a stereotype in the mental health community that if you are if you're that if you're in that profession, it's because you're fucked up yourself. And in that case, I 100% am, right? And so they try to work out their own issues by getting into that profession. For me, I had issues with sex for so long, and I didn't know where to go for help. So I actually had pain with sex up until about a year ago, my entire life, and I didn't understand intercourse other than equating pain to intercourse. Also, I have never been able to come organically with a partner without also using a vibrator, and I thought there was something wrong with me, right? I thought like, okay, well, this isn't what I see in porn. This isn't what is supposed to happen by society, right? And that is still a thing that I'm personally working on with myself, but also getting to the point of being able to flip that in my head and be like, oh my God, wait, it's actually amazing that I can orgasm, because there's actually there's about 10% of the female population who doesn't experience orgasm, right? And I actually have it, and just because I use the tool with it, why is that a negative thing? And that kind of goes back to societal scripts that we have around what sex is supposed to be, and about what is right and what is wrong. Did I answer your question? I think I did.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, well, I know that a lot of women actually can't just like come through penetration
Yeah.
alone. I know some need like oral stimulation or clitoral stimulation and stuff like that. So I know a lot of guys kind of think like, especially when it's more like an ego hit, when they're like, oh, why can't I make my girl come? And it's kind of sometimes not really on the guy entirely. It's kind of just, I noticed, from a lack of
Yeah.
communication, because like how you said, a little bit, I think porn kind of affects it a little bit, where it's like, oh, on porn, I see all these girls cream pieing and squirting and doing all this other shit. And why doesn't my
Yeah.
girl do that? You know what I mean? Like, why can't I get her to do that, instead of having the adult mature conversation of, hey, what do you need to climax? What do you need me to do? How
Yeah.
can I be a better sexual partner to you? And I think that's important, whether you're in a relationship or it's just somebody that you're casually having sex with. You know what I mean? You want it to be enjoyable for both of you. So you want to be like, what positions do you enjoy
Hmm.
the most? What, like, how can I help you come?
Hmm.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of guys sometimes they take it as an ego hit, because they're like, I know everything about fucking sex. I'm the man. You don't need to tell me shit. I'm just gonna do
Hmm.
what I do with every other girl that I've ever seen on Pornhub ever, and that
Yeah.
shit's gonna work.
Yeah. And that is a thought process that is bad for the guy, and then also for the girl, right? And yeah, I think you're completely accurate that a lot of guys get into that. And communication makes such a big difference, because uh, only 30% of women actually come from penetration, right? They have internal orgasms. Everybody else, the other 70%, they mostly have a combination of either clitoral stimulation that contributes to orgasm, or a combination of the two. And so that's most women, right? And to complicate matters, each woman is going to come differently, right? So it's important to go, hey, like, be open minded and understand, like, this person, girlfriend A is going to be different from girlfriend B. And then also, girlfriend B could be different one month compared to the next month, or one day to the next day. So, yeah, communication is the way to get around that.
Yeah, definitely got to be willing to communicate
Mhm.
with your partner. So, how can someone know if they would benefit from working with a sex
Yeah.
coach?
So if you have any type of sexual issues that you want to get over, so common things that I work with are going to be early or delayed ejaculation, issues with orgasm. I like working with a lot of kinks and fetishes, people who are trying to overcome maybe some shame that they have around a desire that they're interested in. I also like working with couples who have issues around navigating non monogamy, or who have a desire discrepancy. So each couple is going to have a desire discrepancy. So one person's going to want more sex than the other person, or they're going to want a different type of sex than the other person. So bridging the gap through communication is really helpful. Yeah. So those are, so basically anybody who has a sexual issue that they want to work through, and or anybody who just wants to get better at understanding their own sexuality or the sexuality of other people.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that that's very important. Uh, how do you approach addressing sexual dysfunction with clients? Like, let's say, like how you said, like elongated, like it takes you longer to come, or you feel like you're just ejaculating too quickly, or maybe like a shame with a
Yeah.
fetish or something like that.
Yeah. So all of those issues are going to be completely different therapy approaches. I'm sorry, I said therapy. My background is I'm trained as a counselor, but I don't work as a therapist. What I do as a coach is more directive. But around those different types of issues, um, so for a client with early ejaculation, I would get into, okay, well, why do you specifically have early ejaculation? Because there are a number of different things that could lead to that. It could be medical, it could be an issue with the relationship, it could be an issue around stress in life, it could be cognitive thought processes, right? So having bad thought processes around sex, thinking that they're wrong because they didn't make their wife orgasm through penetration, things like that. So I would address the specific issues going on with that person, and and then create a tailored plan of action on how to get better and how to get over that. So that's a complicated way of saying every person is different, and every plan of action and plan of healing is going to be different depending on their issues. But everybody's going to have an individualized plan.
So, do you think, because this is something me and Guy talked about, the importance of like stroking a man's ego? Because I do think that that's sort of important for a man. You know what I mean? Because let's be honest, men are mostly ego, and I think that it's important that you tend to stroke
Mm,
that ego as
mm,
somebody's partner. Because, like you said, sometimes you get it kind of in your head as a man, where, like I said, your ego's kind of affected when you feel like you're not pleasing your partner or your partner is unsatisfied in some sort of way. Speaking strictly
yeah.
sexually.
So honestly, I think that both sexes have ego put like caught up in sex. They just manifest themselves a different ways. So guys feel like I should be able to do this, or I should just get be good at this, and if I'm not, then there's something wrong with me. But then also women, they feel like they feel a very similar type of thing, but it's more performance oriented. So I should be performing better. I should be able to experience, I should be experiencing more pleasure. I should be able to make my partner come, all of those types of things. But I think that it is a really good idea to just always encourage your partners during sex. So saying things like, God, you are like, I really love when you do this thing. I really love when you do this thing. And it honestly, that's really helpful for teaching somebody how to pleasure you correctly. If you're saying like, wow, I really like when you lightly flick my clit. I love that. That drives me insane. Well, now that person feels good about themselves, but then on top of that, they know what you like, right? You didn't about the ear blowing because maybe you really didn't like the ear blowing that much. It was fine, it was mediocre, but the clit flicking, like you fucking love that and you let them know. And when you tell somebody that
Yeah.
they're good at something, then they get that like internalized feeling of wow, accomplishment, right? We as humans really like to accomplish things. We like to know that we did good, that we're good at that thing. And so that is a really good feeling. But then on top of that, it's going to make them want to do it more. Right. So, like, if you really liked that they did that thing and then you encourage them, then they'll go, oh, yeah, I liked how it felt when she said that she said I was good. And then I want to do it again. So,
Yeah.
consistently encouraging your partner during sex, but then also on top of that, body image is a huge one too. So telling your partner that, hey, baby, I love the way your body looks right now. I fucking love it. I love the way you move. I love the way that, I love the way your color, the color in your skin changes. I love the size of your penis. I love the size of your penis, right? Because that is a huge one for guys, as we all, you know, most most
Yeah.
men don't see penises out in the world except for on porn, and they're erect and they're giant, right? Like you might see it at the gym, or you might see, especially if you're in sports, but those are flaccid penises, and penises change in size when they're erect. So if you're looking at porn all the time and you're just seeing giant penises, that is, I mean, it's just it it is ripe with creating issues around enjoying your penis, right? And that is probably one of the biggest questions I get is my dick okay? Is it okay? And the answer is yeah, man. Like whatever
Yeah.
whatever size it is okay. It's actually there are popular songs that talk about like having big having big dicks and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that everybody feels that way. It just there are minorities who actually like that, but if they're vocal about it, then it just kind of um it makes it to where it feels more prevalent than what it really is.
Yeah, because I feel like societally, that's the thing that's like promoted is like, oh, I want a big dick Jody. I want gotta have a hook in it, or whatever they be saying in the songs and stuff like that, where they're like, oh, if he I call it the rule of six.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Women want a 6 inch penis, a 6 foot guy who makes six figures. Like that's the ideal man that's
sure.
put out there. So a lot of guys do feel like incompetent, or they feel like they're lacking of. I mean, I kind of dealt with it myself when I was a kid, because I'm a kid. Porn is like very prevalent, so I used to watch porn, and like you said, you see these like just
Yeah.
massive fucking hogs on your screen, and you're like, oh my god, like my dick is tiny and inferior. And then I went to gym class. I think it was like seventh grade, and then that's like the first time I was in gym, and then we all got a shower together, and then you know yeah, you look around basically, and if you say you don't, you're a liar, but that's
Right.
cool. You look around, and then you
You
kind
get
of
a
just like,
peek.
oh no, I'm doing all right for myself. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Oh, totally.
yeah, I mean, you're not staring. It's not like admiration, but you just kind of like, well, how am I sizing up in this locker room right here? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you kind of that's honestly what broke the
Mhm.
mold in my mind, where I realized like, oh damn, like I'm actually doing like pretty okay for myself. You know what I mean? Where I was like, oh, I'm putting too much pressure on myself, and porn is giving me a negative perception of this fake reality I've put in my head of what I think
Definitely.
sex is. Because I remember like when I lost my virginity, I uh my partner, she was way more experienced than I was. She had already had like multiple partners and stuff like that. And this is my first
Yeah.
time. So I just did a bunch of shit I saw on the internet, not knowing any fucking better.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just doing that. And then
You're like
yeah,
thrusting. Thrusting is
luckily
what I
it
do.
worked out for me.
Right.
No, I mean, the whole time I was in my
Yeah.
head, because I'm like, man, I'm gonna be fucking terrible at this. Like, I actually didn't like, I couldn't even climax the first
Sure.
time I had sex, because I was so in my head about like, is she enjoying this? Is like this
Yeah.
going good? I hope she doesn't think I'm a newbie, because I don't know how, but prior to us sleeping together, the conversation of sex came up, and then that's how I found out she was more experienced than I was, and that put me in
Hmm.
my head like, oh my god, she knows what good is, and I'm gonna be fucking terrible.
Well, here's the thing. She didn't know what good is. Nobody knows what good is when you first have sex, and it takes women usually until their fucking 30s to go like, "Oh, that's good sex." But yes, the first time can be so nerve-wracking for everyone, but especially if you have been watching and trying to measure yourself compared to porn. Do you know what the
Oh no, 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 go ahead.
do you know what the the most preferred penis sizes by women?
I think it's like 5 inches, isn't it? Like five
It's
point something.
average. It's fucking
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
five point
You're
something.
right. You're right. It's average, right? So
Yeah,
the way that bell curves work, right? So
yeah,
if you looks like this, you've got small penises, small penises, which I'm not saying in a negative way, right? But people immediately assume that it's negative, but smaller than average, right? Which you're right, 5.5 is average, and bigger penises there are there's only a few men with big penises, big, and then there's only a few guys with small penises, right? Most men have average. Well, the same exact bell curve happens for women's preferences, right? So most women just want average, which is what is out there, and then every now and then some like the big one, and then every now and then some like the smaller one. And um, going back to like pop culture and women specifically vocalizing that they want a big dick, I think that it's probably I think that it's more people do that because it's popular, because it's like, oh, it's like a cool thing to say because of porn, but in reality, women really don't want that. And the ones who do want, there are some who they just that is their thing. That is the thing that helps them come, or it's the thing that they just really like, and then they might just be very vocal about it because it's cool to be vocal about it, but there's the same population of women who also want a small penis. It's just not hip to talk about, but they're out there.
yeah. Well, because there are some women that have like shallow vaginas, and a lot of people don't know this, but the vagina does have like for lack of a better
Yeah.
term, an end. You know what I mean? To where like it gets to that point where after that it stops being comfortable and it stops being sexual and it just becomes like
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, and some women are turned on by pain and stuff like that, but I think a lot of guys get it into their head again because like culturally and societally, we hear all the songs talking about, like I said, I want a
Yeah.
big dick and all this other shit. And then you see porn and you see these girls orgasming all over themselves and screaming and coming, and you're like, oh my God, like I don't measure up like that. Like I'm never going to be able to please a
Yeah.
woman type thing, where they're not actually realizing that that's not reality. You know what I mean? That's a perception that's being given because it's just like culturally okay to sort of like propagate that information. Where, like you said, where if you get with a sex coach, they'll tell you more honestly, like, hey, listen, your dick is
Right.
fine, and it's probably not even a you problem. Your woman probably just needs more from you, like to be stimulated differently, and you're too afraid to talk to her because you're so worried
Yeah,
about the size of your dick.
absolutely. Yeah. And I was just also going to add to what you're talking about with, with some people having shorter vaginas. I actually have a tilted uterus, which makes it to where, intercourse with but honestly, anybody average was painful to me. So I needed smaller penises, and my husband has an average size penis, and so I actually had to use basically it's kind of like a retainer to stretch my fucking vagina, and it was painful. Isn't it weird? And you just kind of like keep it in there, and it's like, oh God. But it was painful, and but I got used to it to where now I don't have pain during sex. But there are women out there like me who I was doing okay with the smaller ones, but anything bigger than that I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think it's just all in preference, and I don't think you should be scared to
I
talk to
agree.
your partner and be like, "Hey, listen, like, hey, don't ask questions that you know what I'm saying, or like don't be like, do you think my dick is small and shit like that. I mean, like have a genuine conversation with your partner, like, hey, what can I do to maybe like help increase your pleasure? Like, do you maybe need a toy? Do you need a vibrator? Do you need me to play with your nipples? Do you prefer when I give you oral stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like you got to be vocal about it. And I think some people, like I said, they see it taboo, or they're like, I shouldn't talk about this, or like some people are like, no, you just need to figure my body out. And I don't think that that's really healthy. You need to
Yeah.
have a conversation.
So I actually I had a client who he told me that his wife was terrible at giving blowjobs. They've been together for 10 years. And he said bless her heart, she's just so bad at oral sex. And I was like, oh, interesting. Bless your heart.
Bless her heart.
And I was like,
That's some down south shit. I know all about that down here in Texas. Bless your
yeah,
heart.
where are you at?
I'm in
Oh, you
Houston,
get
so
it.
I'm
You
down
hear
here
that
in
all the
Texas.
time. Yeah.
He loves
Yeah,
it
I'm
down
in
there.
Dallas and a client in Dallas. And yeah, so
Okay.
he, said, God, she's just so bad at oral sex. And I got interested in that. I said, well, tell me how you're giving her feedback. How are you giving her directions? And he was like, oh no, I would never say anything like that to her. And this poor this poor woman, she's been on her knees for 10 years doing her best, doing all of her tricks, all of her movements. And this guy has not given her the chance to change, to grow, to because she's not gonna
Yeah,
freaking
to
know
get
what
better.
feels. She's not a mind. We're not mind readers, right? And this guy thinks that he is saving her by not talking about it, but he's actually doing more damage. So transparency is harder.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
making it worse.
definitely. But it's hard. It's vulnerable to be transparent. It's scary because we have to tell our needs, and then that person may not care about our needs. And then on top of that, we've got fear around handling somebody else's disappointment because yeah, maybe if he were to say something like that, she would feel bad about herself. But as a significant other and somebody that we're married to, you got to learn how to get comfortable with uncomfortable emotions and then help walk her through
Yeah, I also think it's all about like communication and stuff like that. Like not necessarily what you're saying,
that.
but how you're saying it. Which sort of leads me into my next question, which is how can couples improve communication and consent in their
Yeah.
relationships?
So you're right. The way that you say something, how do you say something, is really huge, and it makes a giant difference. So if that specific client were to say, honey, you're awful. You're awful at giving blowjobs, and I don't like when you grip my penis really tight. It actually hurts, and I haven't liked it for 10 years. You don't want to say something like that. What you can say on the flip side is,
Yeah.
baby, I love that you are excited about oral sex. I love that you give me oral sex. That is so hot. Um, I really like it when you use a lighter grip on my penis, right? So by talking about the positives and saying I like it when you do this rather than saying I don't like it when you do that is a better way to go overall. Although sometimes there are times where you can say, hey, I when you did this thing, it was a little bit painful for me, but just by not focusing on the negative a lot and highlighting more positive aspects, that can be really helpful. And also talking about sex outside of the bedroom.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say that I definitely agree with that. Like it's all in the delivery. You should build on the positives instead of focusing on the negatives and kind of use like what I would call gentle encouragement. You know what I mean? Where it's kind of like, oh, babe, like just random example here. Let's just say having a conversation with a girl. Damn, babe, I really like the way you give me a blowjob. That shit's so hot. I love when you look up into my eyes and stuff like that. You know what? I want to try something. Why don't like you let me just kind of like you can kind of turn it to like a little kinky like fantasy type thing where you're like, let me be the headmaster, the teacher, the principal, whatever the fuck, and you do whatever I say because I like it when you
Mm-hmm.
follow directions, and then you just kind of turn it into a fun little game, and then she sees the actual excitement, and she's like, oh shit, like hell yeah, like he really likes when we do this
Yeah.
shit, and then she'll remember that, and same way for guys, you know what I mean? Like when you're down there, you know be a little crude when you're eating pussy or something like that. You know what I mean? Giving a cunnilingus.
I'm
Just
like,
like I feel like some women they kind of don't want to give
yeah,
direction.
definitely. I'm sorry, say the last part one more time. Some women don't want to give direction.
Yeah, like they kind of don't want to and I think it's also some women they don't know what they like because they don't really like there's that like sort of shame aspect where you're sort of shamed for like wanting to please yourself, and you some people are told like, oh, that's a bad thing to be so open about sex or to try to like pleasure
Yeah.
yourself and shit like that. Like, no, man, like just imagine I'm your fucking fingers. Tell me where to touch.
Yeah.
Tell me if you like it soft, you like it hard. Like, let's let me learn fucking
Yeah,
something here.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So especially for women, it can take a long time for women to get comfortable with their bodies and then to actually legitimately know what gets them off. Because sometimes it literally just takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. Again, that's another reason why women, for the majority, have their best sex in their 30s because they finally have masturbated enough. They've tried enough things to be able to go, oh, this is what I like, and I've been doing it this way, or my partner's been doing it this way, and now I can actually finally explain that. But it's also it can feel scary. Again, it is vulnerable to vocalize the things that we want and need. Something you can also do if it feels scary is um, you don't have to do it in the moment. You can actually do it outside of the bedroom. So maybe, when you're going for a walk or when you are, when you're at dinner, something like that. You can say, hey, I find it really sexy. And I would like for you to do more nipple play, or I would like for you to, I would like to do more, you know, role play type stuff. So talking about that type of stuff outside of the bedroom can be really good. You can't really give specific, explanations for how I want my clit stroked outside of the bedroom, but talking about um, other kind of like maybe like bigger desires, that's a good time and place.
Yeah, kind of just leading your partner. So when you get into the bedroom, you could kind of be like, just like, oh, why don't you show me what you were talking about? Like,
Yeah.
something like that. Um, so how do you help clients explore and like embrace their kinks and fetishes in a safe and consensual manner,
Yeah,
of course?
so that is one of my favorite type of client to work with, uh, because again, like what I talked with previously, I hate not being able to talk about things, or I hate like not being able to vocalize things. And there's so much shame that goes around fetishes or kinks. And so when somebody sees me and I get to hear them out and then also listen to them in a way that is non-judgmental, it can feel really powerful. But you don't need to have a professional to have that same type of feeling of being with another person who's non-judgmental. What I recommend people do is go find communities like yourself that have like-minded interests. So if you're at Starbucks and you're into feet and you have a foot fetish and you talk to the person next to you in line about like, wow, last night I got to suck on these really great, like amazing toes. Like, first of all, you probably shouldn't be talking about sex stuff at a Starbucks. That's not the best example. Let's say you're actually on a date with somebody, but it's like a vanilla date that you found on a vanilla dating app, right? And you talk about being interested in feet, and then it is more likely that you are going to interact with somebody who's going to have a negative uh, thought process around that or be judgmental. Whereas, if you put yourself in situations and circumstances where people are more open minded, that is a great way to get more secure in your fetish and your desire and then be able to explore that. So the best way is to find somebody who has similar thoughts or desires to you is by going on Reddit, honestly, subreddits around different types of kinks. So, if it's feet or if it's, feminization or wearing nylons, there's going to be a subreddit for that. And then go into these subreddits and read about other people who are interested in that and read about other people who desire that. So that's also another thing. When people find something like feet sexy, and then they can sometimes feel like nobody else is going to want this, nobody else is going to be want to be on the receiving end. Well, guess what, there are people who are very into that. They're just not out there vocalizing it because they have experienced shame about it as well. So if you go into these subreddits and then you see people who desire feet, but then also people who want their feet to be desired. Oh my God. Like that is such a mind blowing thing to be experienced too. It doesn't necessarily have to be Reddit. Reddit's just really diverse, but it could also be, there's tons of blogs out there around, alternative lifestyles. Also getting into sex positive and kinky communities. So things like Fet Life, or especially if you live in a big city or any really medium-sized city to big city, you can look up events around, kinky or alternative lifestyle type people, and then go hang out with them because even if they're not into the same fetish or desire that you're into, they are still going to be more open-minded in general because they have dealt with their own alternative thing. And so when you say your alternative thing, they'll be like, "Oh, that's cool. I do this." So that is a really
Yeah.
good way to get integrated with yourself, become more comfortable with yourself, find other people like you.
Yeah, because it's like Dio says, nobody wears a sign that says, "Hey, I'm a kinkster."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's probably far few and in between. I'm sure there might be somebody with a shirt that says, "Suck my toes" or something, but on a regular everyday
Yeah.
basis, gonna be a little bit harder. So yeah, it's definitely good to reach out and find
Yeah.
your community. I would
Agree.
say. So that kind of you brought up something about like online dating and stuff like that. So how can individuals navigate like the complexities of online dating and hookup culture while protecting their own well-being, like their own mental
Yeah.
health and their own, you know, like practicing safe sex and stuff like that, which I think you should always practice safe sex. You should get checked up every time you get a new partner, before y'all have sex and after y'all have sex. You should always get yourself tested and checked out. I'm a big proponent of that. And you should always use
Yeah.
protection.
I agree with you. And also, I didn't realize until just recently that most cities have access to free STD testing. I've been paying for it for the longest time. I had no idea that you could just Google free STD testing. Because I remember I was telling a friend of mine, who's gay, and he's like, "I'm sorry, you've been paying for it? It's like you just go down, like there's a clinic down the road, like you can get that for free." So that's good. So look up free STD testing because if it's free, that's another barrier to why there's no reason to not do it frequently. On top of that, you can Google free condoms, like free condom delivery, and almost uh, every state and every city will send you free condoms. There's certain packages where you can have a subscription. They send you free condoms every month. Again, it's where like it's so easy to do. It's so readily available. So that's all very cool. The first question was around dating apps. So dating apps is complex. Yeah, it's definitely complex. So for some people, they find it easy to find matches, or they find it easy to find other, like some people, they get on there and they're like, "Oh, this is kind of easy." But then some people have, and I would say probably the majority of people have some type of difficulty with it. part of the issue is that men and women are looking for different things on the app. So when women get on the app, they're going, who am I going to spend the rest of my life with? And then guys are like, who can I get tonight? So there are women who get a ton of matches, but then they feel frustrated with the lack of the lack of finding a person who actually wants to be in a relationship. So they get a ton of matches, but then they're annoyed by the fact that the matches are not good, and then there are men who get upset by the lack of matches. So one of the things that you can do in this situation is you can just beef up your profile. So that means taking good photos. It means being thoughtful about the description. So don't just put nothing in there. Put some information about yourself. Be personal. Um, you can do that, or you can just kind of say, "Oh God, fuck the dating apps," and how do I meet somebody genuinely in person? And that takes more time. It's definitely going to take more time. But it can feel um, it can feel really good to some people who are frustrated with the dating app situation. So ways to meet people in real life are, join classes. That's an amazing one. Start, doing yoga. Start doing CrossFit. Start doing improv classes. Start doing, painting, doing cooking, doing hiking things. Hiking communities, things like that.
Go to your local
Go to your
Target.
go to your local Target. Yeah, there are, if you just kind of go out and about into the real world and meet people doing things that you already like to do, that is a great way to actually connect with people if you're feeling frustrated by the apps.
Yeah, I think that you should like if you want somebody that's into like rock climbing or into hiking because that's what you're into, you can find like I know it's mostly for old people, but I'm an old fuck, so you can go to like Facebook, you know what I mean, and like join a community where it's like people that go hiking
Yeah.
on the weekends, and then you join that community, find out where y'all meet up, you go meet up for a hike or whatever, and then you meet people in real life. I always think that it's better for people to meet in real life. One, because I mean, with dating apps and stuff like that, it's mostly just like a photo. Which I'm on the Tinder subreddit because
Mm,
I give like a lot of guys like advice on how to fix their profile and shit like that.
cool.
Because a lot of
Yeah.
guys they don't really get a lot of matches, and I see it, and it's like the bathroom selfie and just like a bunch of
Yeah. Yeah.
terrible fucking photos
Yeah.
with terrible focus,
Yeah.
not doing anything. And I'm like, man, if you really want to like shine on these dating apps, you can hire a professional photographer for relatively cheap and just go take pictures in the wild or ask a friend or a waitress or a bartender, somebody to take a photo of you doing fun things, showing that you have a fun lifestyle that somebody would want to be a part of. As far as like, I'm speaking just strictly from the male side. You know, women want to feel like when they're on these dating apps, like how you said, a lot of them want to be with somebody who, you know, it like I don't want to say mirrors their lifestyle, but things that they have in common. So, if you like rock climbing, have a photo of you climbing a fucking, one of those indoor rock climbing facilities. Ask the instructor to take a photo of you if you can while
Mhm.
you're rock climbing or whatever. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like I think a lot of guys kind of like shoot themselves in the foot because they're like, you hear about how easy it is on dating apps, so you kind of just take it for granted. So you kind of just like half-ass it. Like you said, you'll put a terrible fucking
Mhm.
description. Your photos are very subpar. You know what I mean? You don't have any information filled out or anything like that, and your photos are so blurry they can't even
Yeah. Yeah.
verify you on there. Like that's another big thing I always say you should have your photos verified because people want to know that you're a real
Mm.
person. But that's what I said. To me, I prefer to meet people in real life because also I think that you kind of get a better feel for somebody because you get that like instant
Mm.
attraction. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of feel it. What some people call like the
Oh.
vibe or whatever. You kind of just get that sort of like gelling and stuff like that. You can kind of see how the conversation goes, and I also think me personally, again, speaking from the male side, it's easier to gauge like a woman's engagement level from having an actual
Yeah.
conversation just naturally in the wild. As far as like you're texting for a couple hours and then all of a sudden you never hear
Hmm.
from her again, but because she's constantly getting blown up on these dating
Hmm.
apps and shit like that, so you're playing against the
Yeah.
numbers. You know what I mean? You're putting yourself in a terrible position when it comes to being the most
Yeah.
attractive on these dating
Yeah.
apps.
And I like that you talked about joining the Facebook groups, and stuff like that. So I like that none of the suggestions you gave or I gave were go to a bar, because I think that sometimes people hear like, oh, real life, that means go get fucked up and pick up a girl at a bar. I just I think that anytime you're in a scenario where you're fucked up, right? It is going to be so much harder to find a person who you really gel with. Because, I mean, like a couple of glasses of wine or something, like let's say you're doing wine tasting, something like that is fine. But being in a party environment and drinking a lot or being, fucked up in other ways, um, clouds your ability to really understand whether or not you gel with that person.
Yeah, because also, I mean, you have alcohol, your inhibitions are low, you're more likely to say some dumb shit. Not only that, I'm not saying you can't go to a bar and hook up and stuff like that, and I'm not saying that you can't go to a bar and meet somebody you have a connection with, but that shit is so far few and in between, man. Again, you're
Yeah,
playing against the numbers because you got a bunch of other drunk guys looking for drunk women to hit on.
definitely.
So you
Yeah.
know what I mean. You're just kind of playing yourself a little bit, and then also, especially as a guy, sometimes you're definitely playing against yourself because there are some guys there at that bar that they have a higher amount of disposable income where they'll just throw their wallet at a
Sure.
girl. You know what I mean? They'll just flood her with drinks all night
Hmm.
to steal her
Hmm.
attention, even though she sometimes has no intention of dealing with this man
Yeah.
whatsoever. But now you don't even have a chance to introduce yourself or make an impression on her because she has to
Yeah.
pay attention to this guy who's buying her and her three friends drinks
Hmm.
all fucking night.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And then you're having to yell because nobody can fucking hear each
Oh
other over
God,
the
yeah.
music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why, like, you go to dance class, you go to, you know what I mean? There are other things that involve, like, either, like, social things where it's not just, like, a drunk hookup culture.
Right.
Again, not telling you
Yeah.
not to go to the bar, but you're playing against
Yeah.
yourself here. Like, you're limiting yourself to the amount of potential good partners you can expose yourself to in that
Yeah.
type of environment.
I agree.
Oh yeah, definitely. How do you think that societal expectations and norms impact sexual expression, and how can individuals work to overcome these like
Mhm.
barriers?
There are so many things uh, that come from society that affect us that we don't even notice, right? That we don't you're this is also getting into like a weird thought process of are there really any thoughts that we have that are our own, because everything to some degree is something that we've heard from another person, is a thing that we have heard from our family, our friends, society as a whole, right? So I think that when we run into issues, and maybe it's around like feeling like my dick isn't big enough because everything else in my life has told me I need to have a big dick. I need to have a big dick. Society has told me I need to have a big dick. Well, then that's the moment that we kind of need to reassess. Okay, is this is this narrative mine? And is this true? This has been told to me my whole life. Is this even true? Is this even real? Is this even representative of me and what I think? Um, to the best of my ability of what is real, of what I really think. Because again, if to some degree I don't think we have any thoughts.
After a few technical
Bam.
difficulties, we've got it sorted out. So hey, thank you so much for
Yep.
joining me, man. This was such a fun episode, very informative. I hope you guys learned a lot. And why don't you
So
go ahead
much
and let
fun.
everyone know where they
Yeah.
can find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at my sex coach. I'm also on Twitter at my sex coach. And from those links, you can find me on Pornhub. You can also you can find me on Watch Girls Watch Porn. And yeah, I answer all my questions in my DM. So if you have any questions, go ahead and DM me.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. Make sure to go check out Watch Girls Watch Porn on Pornhub. Don't stay for the extra research because it's a wormhole. But go watch the show. It's a great show. I had a blast watching it. They're nice, short and concise, and they're actually a lot of fun. They're pretty funny. But hey, thank you so much for coming on. I hope that
Thank
people
you.
were able to gain some knowledge that maybe they can use with their significant other, their partner, whatever they want to call their special someone. And hopefully I can use this, information that I've learned today with my special someone. You know. So thank you so much, man. And I can't wait to have you back on. I hope
Awesome.
you'll be willing to come back on again.
I would love to. I would love to, Boogie. Thank you for having me on. It was a really fun show.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, and welcome to
Bye.
season 2 of Block Talk.
I see you, Block.